Vanadhari Gopi Jana Balaba Jaya Kiri Vanadhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Bonachadi Yamuna Bonachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kundra Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kundra Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivakacharya Astradata Satasira Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinatha Syamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavandam Ki Jai. Shri Mayapurdam Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakti Devi Sri Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Guranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Ganajana Salakaya Chakshu Mitram Yena Tasmai Sigrave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Siyuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragutan Vitam Tam Sadivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami naminiti namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskacha Dishatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasade Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Readings from Srimad Bhagavatam, text Canto 1, chapter 13, text number 26. Gata Swartam Imam Deham Virakto Mukta Bandhana Avigyata Gatir Jayat Sa Vai Dira Udahrita Gata Swartam Imam Deham Virakto Mukta Bandhanaha Avigyata Gatir Jayat Savaidhira Udahrita Gata Swartam Imam Deham Virakto Mukta Bandhanaha Avigyata Gatir Jayat Savaidhira Udahrita. Devotees. Deham Kabadaktanaham Avigyata Gatir Gyata Savaidhira Udahrita Gata Swartam Imam Deham Virakto Mukta Bandhanaha Avigyata Gatir Gayat Savaidhira Udahrita. Anybody else? Gyata Swartamidam Meham Virakto Mukta Bandhanaha Avigyata Gatir Gayat Savaidhira Udahrita. Ladies? Gata Swartam Imam Deham Virakto Mukta Bandhanaha Avigyata Gatir Jayat Savaidhira Udahrita Nyananameham Virakto Muktarandanaha Avigyata Gatir Gayat Savaidhira Udahrita Viranamaham Virakto Muktabandhanaha Avigyata Gatir Jayat Savaidhira Udahrita Gata Swartam without being properly utilized. Imam, this. Deham, material body. Viraktaha, indifferently. Mukta, being freed. Bandhana, from all obligations. Avigyata gati, unknown destination. Jayat, one should give up this body. Saha, such a person. Vai, certainly. Dhiraha, undisturbed. Udadhritaha, it is said to be so. Translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He is called undisturbed, who goes to an unknown, remote place and freed from all obligation quits his material body when it has become useless. Please repeat. He is called undisturbed, who goes to an unknown place, remote place, and freed from all obligations, quits his material body when it has become useless. Purport. Narottam Das Thakur, a great devotee and acharya of the Gaudiya Vaishnava sect, has sung, "My Lord, I have simply wasted my life. Having obtained the human body, I have neglected to worship your lordship, and therefore I have willingly drunk poison." In other words, the human body is especially meant for cultivating knowledge of devotional service to the Lord, without which life becomes full of anxieties and miserable conditions. Therefore, one who has spoiled his life without such cultural activities is advised to leave home without knowledge of friends and relatives, and being thus freed from all obligations of family, society, country, etc. Give up the body at some unknown destination so that others may not know where and how he has met his death. Dhira means one who is not disturbed, even when there is sufficient provocation. One cannot give up a comfortable family life due to his affectionate relation with wife and children. Self-realization is obstructed by such undue affection for family, and if anyone is at all able to forget such a relation, he is called undisturbed or dhira. This is, however, the path of renunciation based on a frustrated life. But stabilization of such renunciation is possible only by association with bona fide saints and self-realized souls by which one can be engaged in the loving devotional service of the Lord. Sincere surrender under the lotus feet of the Lord is possible by awakening the transcendental sense of service. This is made possible by association with pure devotees of the Lord. Dhritarashtra was lucky enough to have a brother whose very association was a source of liberation for their frustrated life. So just to summarize a little bit, we've been doing text by text. Sometimes you lose the story and how the text is embedded. This verse is actually embedded in a very long and complicated history that is fully narrated in the Mahabharata. Maha means great, Bharata means planet. Planet Earth used to be the whole Earth planet was called Bharat, after a great king, Bharat Maharaj. And today I think India is also known as Bharata amongst the Indian people. So if you haven't read this book, you really want to go pick a copy up of the gift shop by Krishna Dharma. His rendition is superb. Very easy reading. It's like watching a movie. You will not put it down. So a little plug for that. So a lot of the stories from the Srimad Bhagavatam really are couched, these players that we're talking about, there's so many of them, are more elaborated in the Mahabharata. So as the story goes, the Pandavas, the 5 Pandavas, who were the sons of Pandu, they became victorious in the battle of Kurukshetra, where the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. And they became victorious because Krishna was on their side. Dhritarashtra, who was their uncle, who happened to be blind, he lost not only the kingdom, the battle, but he lost 100 sons, which couldn't have been very easy for anyone. So in spite of that, having lost everything and having spent many, many years trying to, through his demonic son Duryodhana, trying to kill the Pandavas, who were his nephews, he's now in his old age sitting in the home or the kingdom of the winners of the battle, his 5 Pandava nephews, who he was trying to kill. He was quite an enemy. But here he is, having lost everything in a morose state, living, trying to enjoy up until the last minute of his life some kind of predictability and comfort. And Vidura, his other brother, who had been away and had had conversations with sages and became enlightened, he decides to come home and help his brother, who he sees as spiritually blind, not only materially blind, but he's spiritually blind. And for the benefit of Dhritarashtra and ourselves, he tells him, you know, somebody in your position of life, at the end of life, when life has really become useless, you have no function, your body is ready to crash, and you need to leave home. So, and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, this is quite an instruction for even a young person to do, because people are pretty used to staying comfortable. That's why we go to school. That's why we get a job, because we need money to pay for an apartment. So we have food because we want to be sure that when we wake up in the morning, we have something to sustain our life. Now he's telling this old man, no, you should leave everything and go to the forest, or go to some unknown place. I know from personal experience, you know, that as we get older, the body has a million aches and pains. And it takes a lot of effort just to get up in the morning, to go through the motions of bathing the self, you know, if you're living alone, having to cook, having to get food, clean up and all of that. And so the only solution in material life, in material culture, in American culture, is you need to your whole life save a whole bunch of money in order to somehow find an assisted living home and find people who want to take care of you. Because at a certain point, you're kind of by yourself. You can't do things. And a lot of people don't have that money. And so they may get on Medicaid, and then they put you in any place in the United States they can find a bed for you. So this is a pretty meager or bleak kind of prospect as you get older. And the problem with a retirement community, even if you have health, you might have some health at the end. I know this because in the last year and a half I visited my father's assisted living probably every day for the last 14 months for 3 hours to make sure he got managed, because you fall through the cracks when you get in one of those institutions. And the best you can hope for is maybe a bingo game. If you have your health, you might go together and have a sing-along with some church group may come in and sing with you. And maybe you get on a bus in your wheelchair in a handicap bus, and they go over to McDonald's and they have a hamburger, and that was an event. So Prabhupada, he references a song by a very great Vaishnava Acharya, Narottam Das Thakur. My Lord, I have simply wasted my life. Having obtained the human body, I have neglected to worship your lordship, and therefore I have willingly drunk poison. Now, I'm living right now. My father finally died. Some of you know my story, but my father died on New Year's Day. Thankfully, I was there and got to sing for him and squirt him a little bit with Ganges water and whatnot. But now I'm living with my mother, who's 90, and she's aware that I could die at any moment. In fact, I'm going to die any moment. I might be dead by the time you get back from LA on Thursday. And in spite of that, her daily intake of information is morning. First thing in the morning, you have your Cheerios, and you turn on the television to see what Donald Trump is doing, and fill your head full of all of that. Then you may go back to bed for a little bit. Then you get up for your noon novella, whatever they call that, what do you call it, soap opera. We've got to hear about the lives of all kinds of mundane people. Then you might you take another nap and go to the grocery store for a minute, and then evening time from 6:30 to about 10:30 is more television. Oh, newspaper. We're going to read the newspaper. That's the other thing. So what do you think comes out of her mouth when she opens her mouth? What kinds of topics do you think come out? Any guesses? Huh? Novellas, newspaper. I mean, it's a one track, because whatever you put in comes out. So here Narottam Dastur is saying, knowingly, I drink poison. She knows I could die at any moment. She doesn't seem to get that my mind, it's important what I fix my mind on. So Prabhupada, in this purport, he says, one who has spoiled his life without such cultural activities is advised to leave home without knowledge of friends and relatives, being freed from all obligations. So that's not such an easy thing. And but apparently people do it, and in ancient India they did that. And you have holy places like Vrindavan and Mayapur, Hardwar. There's various places where elders could go and be surrounded by at least devotee association and prepared to leave their body. I remember when I was living in Vrindavan, we lived on a kind of a dusty road around the corner from Krishna Balaram Mandir, and I remember coming home on a rickshaw with my groceries, and there was a man lying down in the dust, an elder man. I don't know. Maybe I should hold it. I don't know. An elder man, he was lying in the dust, and he looked like he was pretty close to death. I didn't know what was going on. He looked like he needed help. So I said, I'll go home and I'll get you a glass of water and I'll be right back. And when I got back, the man was already dead. He just had died. And so what I've seen, having lived in Vrindavan for a while, is that often elders will go and roam around chanting and visiting temples, maybe getting food. A lot of the temples, they distribute prasadam, and then they just drop in the dust. They just die, which sounds really, for a Western mind, that sounds really horrible. That sounds like, oh my gosh, you want to be surrounded by family members. And of course, for us, you don't want to be around family members who are going to tie you to the material condition. Okay, you want to hold it? Okay, all right, there you go. So it's completely counterintuitive in the spiritual association that you don't want your family members in front of you, because you may, of course, unless they're a great devotee, who are inspiring you at the last minute to try and think of Krishna. If your parents, like my father, wasn't a great devotee, but he got an enormous amount of mercy from Srila Prabhupada, having met him once, having gone to Vrindavan. He came just out of love for me, had no interest in Krishna particularly. He thought I was dying of malaria, so he begged, borrowed, and stole money and went to Vrindavan. He got a terrible case of dysentery. At the end of his life, however, even though he had no real love for Krishna as far as I could see, but he had love for me. And I'm not a great devotee even, and so that may be the way devotees bring their parents back to Godhead, is just by having them love you. They may not love Krishna, but if they love you, they may send you some Lakshmi to help you. They may support you in so many ways. So the nature of this material world is that it is filled with problems. In fact, we have a saying in English when we see somebody that looks like they're having trouble. We have a saying, well, what's the problem? We may also say it's a synonym, what's the matter? What's the matter? It means, what's the problem? And so the material energy means there's so many problems. So Prabhupada is explaining here that a person who has spoiled their life by not cultivating their spiritual life, they're just full of stress. They're full of problems. And so he's telling Dhritarashtra and also us, we need to leave home as soon as possible and throw ourselves fully into the process of devotional service, or in the cultivation of spiritual life. And if we do so, Prabhupada says, that we can become free from anxiety. In fact, these temples are considered to be Vaikuntha Loka, because when a person is fully absorbed in activities in the Hare Krishna movement, whether it's temple worship or going out on Harinam or trying to create a lecture or reading these books or discussing them, then the mind is completely peaceful. There's no anxiety, because there is a notion or an experience that if we do that, all of our other problems will be taken care of. Prabhupada further explains how self-realization is obstructed due to undue family affection, whether it be your parents, whether it be your children, your siblings, your aunts, your uncles, and that the reality is that's a completely inherent quality of a conditioned soul. We have affection for our families. We have affection for, our children, our grandchildren. We do have that. Every animal species, they form themselves in a group, a clan, a tribe. Every living being, they have this notion that if I am surrounded by my people, then I will be protected. Now that's a material protection. If you look at animals and there's a threat, they will all gather together and try to help one another out. And so without health insurance or other kinds of insurance, it's a smart idea, or people think it's a smart idea, safety in numbers. We also think it's a smart idea to live in community also, because it's a great means of protecting our spiritual life. So we also gather in communities. There's so many advantages to having your people to support you in your journey. It saves a whole lot of money. If you imagine each one of us had our own car, we had our own house, we had to each day, each one of us would have to cook our meals and whatever, there wouldn't be a whole lot of preaching going on, because everybody would be in their own place doing that, and then having to work to make the money to do that. So, but it's a natural thing to want to be surrounded by like-minded people. And it's a difficult thing, particularly our attachment to our relationships with our family. Prabhupada, there's a wonderful story. I don't know, I read it in Yamuna's book or online, but in the early days, there was, devotees had a lot of personal association with Srila Prabhupada. And there was a devotee named Janaki Mataji, who was a former wife of Mukunda Maharaj. And one day, she received a telegram for him from India, and it was from his family members. And so she took it to Prabhupada, and she waited till Prabhupada opened it. And when he opened it, he read it, and he became very sober. And he sat for a while in his chair, and Janaki, I mean, you probably wouldn't do that today, but in those days, you felt bold enough to say, Prabhupada, what was in your telegram? I was you would have to be really ignorant to even ask that of your spiritual master. But anyway, she was innocently asking, and he was kind. And he said, well, it's a telegram from my family, and it says that one of my sisters is very, very ill, and that she might die. So he was very sad about that. He obviously was feeling thoughtful and reflective. And Janaki said, but Prabhupada, you're a self-realized soul. Why would you be disturbed by that? And he said, family life is the most difficult thing to give up. And even him being able to share with us, his sentiment and his reflection, he didn't run home or do anything, but he did pause because he felt some sadness, some grief or reflection. Then 2 weeks later, another telegram came from same family, and Janaki brought it, and he opened it. He read it, and then he matter-of-factly went about his way. And Janaki said, so what was in the telegram, Prabhupada? And Prabhupada said, well, she died. My sister died. And she said, but you're not as sad as you were 2 weeks ago. So what's the difference? You don't look like you're affected by that very much. And he said, well, she was a devotee, and so she probably had a good destination, so not to worry. And many places in the Bhagavad Gita, you'll see Prabhupada talking about that. You know, when Arjuna is, he's faced with the prospects of killing his family, when he's faced with the prospects of being killed by his family members, Krishna is saying, why should you be morose? They're looking for a better destination. They have all good things to hope for if they die on the battlefield. So it's a really different way of looking at things, especially in my line of work. I'm kind of in the death trade myself, so I deal with death a lot, with people dying, and so it's a little odd to say, well, you have a lot to look for. The people say, a lot of the people who are palliative care and hospice, he's in a better place, but they don't know what that better place really is. Let me go. I'm aware of the time, and I don't want to go. So Prabhupada is talking about the Dhira, the person who gives up all of his affectionate relationships. If you go on to the next verse, you actually read this whole chapter, you'll see that Prabhupada fleshes out that there are three types of people who actually become transcendental to the material world. The Dhira, who we've just spoken of. The second one, and he goes on to talk about people who take sannyas or renounce everything because they have some sentiment. They're frustrated in their sentiment. And indeed, we know that all of us have been nurtured in this material world to be in love with the idea of love. We had Valentine's Day last Thursday, and boy, Hallmark had a field day. Everybody spent lots of money on flowers and chocolates or whatever it is for their loved one, and so it's a big day. But Prabhupada is saying here, people often they wake up. They get so frustrated trying to get love in the external realm through other people, and then they get burnt. Who hasn't got burnt in a loving relationship? I know I have, even before I came to the movement, so many times. You're reaching out for some loving relationship and you get a kick in the face. And so then you think, okay, I'm going to pick up my toys and I'm going to go home. I'm done. And that's the way often people, they take renunciation. So I'm really fed up. I'm just fed up with my home. I'm fed up with my work. So I'm going to just give it all up and join the Hare Krishna movement, which a lot of us did. You know, we joined the movement not really clear about why we were doing it often. It took us a long time to figure out, oh, maybe I didn't have to do that, but it was really an advantage. Prabhupada does, and I remember this in the early days, how he encouraged us to leave everything and join the movement because he knew that our home life was pretty demonic. He knew that all of our parents were like Hiranyakasipu, and if there was any hope for us to get free from that association, they needed an association. But what I noticed in the early days, often Prabhupada would not encourage Indian body devotees to give up everything, but to be householders and work regularly and cultivate their Krishna consciousness at home. And one of the reasons is because most Indians have some culture, maybe not today as much. I know India has quickly imitated the West in so many ways. But I did notice that Prabhupada didn't encourage people to immediately leave home who had been raised in a Vedic culture, because it says here that it's better to stay in whatever position you're in, whether you're in the temple, whether you're outside, wherever you are, that you have met the Hare Krishna movement or you become awakened to the goal of life, and to busy yourself chanting and hearing and learning and worshiping. If you're too far to come to the temple, to worship in your home. If you do live nearby, come and associate. And there will come a time, Krishna will arrange for you, there will come a time when it's time. If you become attracted to preaching to so much that you start getting invited to travel and preach, then it may be that you leave home. I know Prabhupada stayed way longer than he probably And he laments that stayed longer than the world could wait for him. He didn't want to take sannyas because he had been his whole life, he had been practicing Krishna consciousness and studying at home and associating with the devotees at the temple. But Krishna made him. Krishna appeared through his spiritual master and said, now you have to leave home. And now you have to take up the order of your guru. And so he did it reluctantly. One has to think, Prabhupada set the example, one has to think 100 times whether or not Krishna really is calling them, or whether Krishna still has things to do in one's place, wherever that is. So we're so lucky that we have the association of devotees, and it's very easy to take it for granted. It's very easy to think, okay, now I've joined the Hare Krishna movement. Now I'm done. I made it. And boy, as you go on, you'll start to see, oh no, material attachment and desires and envy and laziness and all of those things start to make yourself, as you purify your heart, you start to see, oh my goodness, there's so much work to do. I probably won't even make it in this lifetime, particularly if you have had a life of non-devotional service. The mind has so many impressions, you're full of all those thoughts, and when you start chanting, a lot of that stuff comes up. Like if you have a deep well, and you start to stir it up, the leaves and the mud and everything starts coming up, and now you have to visit some of the things that you wasted your time on, and things you said, and have to work through those. So last point Prabhupada makes about affection. A couple weeks ago I was giving class. They gave the Sunday class in Potomac, Washington Temple, and they have topics. They were doing the 6 values of the Bhagavad Gita, and they gave me the value of affection. And they wanted me to tie it into death, because they know that's kind of what I did. I had a real hard time getting all that together. But as I was doing research for it, I came to the story of Brahma stealing the cows in Krishna book. Do you know, you read this, you all know the story, so I won't recount the whole story. But Brahma, we know, he was quite a proud being, and he wanted to test Krishna's power and see how potent he was. And so through his mystic process, he hid them. And then Krishna expanded himself into cows and calves and cowherd boys that looked just like they did before. And then they went home. And at the end of the day, they went home with their calves, and the boys went to their mothers, and the calves went to their mothers. And the mothers of the calves and the children were so overwhelmed with affection. It's like, oh my goodness, I mean, I love my kids, okay, but now I'm really in love with them. I don't even know why. But Prabhupada explains there that when a person becomes aware of Krishna not only within their heart, but in the heart of all others, they automatically feel affection for everyone else, every living being. There's affection because you see, there's Krishna there. There's the source of our life and the core of everyone's heart. And so we then begin as devotees, when we start to see that, we then have a real reason to take care of our family or to have affection. We take care of our parents because we know they're not really belong to our body. You know, somehow we have taken birth into their situation. There's a karmic exchange there. Somehow there's a learning process. But we have affection because we want to help them in devotional life. We have affection for our children, our siblings, because we see there's a potential devotee there that if we can just fan that spark a little bit, you know, maybe there's a hope that they will find Krishna. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes we don't see them taking to Krishna right away, but maybe their next lifetime they get a little opportunity to associate with devotees. So affection really is in the heart of the beholder. If we can tap into that little drop of love within our heart, then the whole flood of love of God comes out. And I remember my first time living in Vrindavan, I was a really young, new devotee, and Prabhupada would go on walks every morning up the, I don't know what it's called, Bhaktivedanta Road. And that was one thing he stopped and said, if one can just tap into one drop of love for Krishna, the whole floodgates. So you have this image like an egg, if you can just tap it and it just bursts open. If we can just do that, then we can become free from the stresses, the miseries of material life, because we see Krishna's in everything. There's just not a place where Krishna isn't. There's no place we can go where Krishna is not. And I think I have had to realize that more than ever, having to live in the home of non-devotees for the last year and a half. That has been a real test of my awareness to know Krishna is also here. So if Krishna is also here, how can I evoke that spirit of Krishna here in the home of non-devotees? It's one thing to go and visit. It's another thing to live in the same home with non-devotees. In the beginning, it may be easy because you're pretty strong. You've been around devotees a lot, but over time, they want you to associate in their realm, and it's a real easy slide into now wanting to go to church. I've had to take my father to church for the last 14 months because they can't go on their own. But now you're surrounded by their acquaintances, and it works on you. So you have to be really careful that you're in a strong association to be able to help those family members that you have so much affection for. So I'm going to stop here. I didn't say half of what I thought I would, but anyway, are there any reflections or comments or questions about anything? Yes. Yeah, if a person can tap into even a small drop of love, because Krishna is in our heart, the spiritual world is in our heart. If we can just tap into that, the whole floodgates of love will come out. It'll just open up like a dam. If you have a dam and there's a chink and there's a hole, then just all comes out. Okay. Yeah, if we can just taste one little drop. Sometimes we see it. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we really see it. Sometimes we don't. Anything else? Yes.
In our Vedic literatures, like in this particular section, where Vidura is encouraging his brother to go out of here. So it might be very difficult for other, like religious tradition groups and family people to understand, because normally in another, they have a different understanding that the family can all be together, and maybe if they're all religious, they can go back together. Is there any parts in the very literatures in which, we have the same concept that we are going to be together in Goloka Vrindavan as a family members?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know Prabhupada has been asked that before, where we're going to reunite with our family members, and the way I heard him answer it is that when we get free from our bodies, it'll be a surprise where we go. We also have the statement that if we've been family members in this lifetime, like husband and wife, that you're married probably 7 lifetimes in front of you and in back of you somehow. Husband and wife possibly even changing places. This life I'm the wife, next life I'm the husband, and you're reciprocating. There's that notion, but that's not out of the body. That's what's attracting you in the body. When you go back to Krishna Loka, my sense is that you have a totally different body that is a spiritual body, and you might be a bumblebee on the garland of Krishna. You may be a cow in Krishna's Leela, but unlikely, if you have that much attachment for Krishna, that your soul is going to be taking you back to your family. Because you can live in the same family, eating the same food, sleeping in the same house, and everybody goes to a different place. There's no guarantee just because you've shared a home or a family, because everybody has their karma. Everybody is making choices. You have no control over what the guy next to you is doing or thinking, and it's really between you and Krishna. Yes.
Haribol, thank you for a very nice presentation, very heart-touching. On this last question, two things. Prabhupada said, there is an ISKCON in the spiritual world and we'll all go there, everybody except for Mr. Nair, who gave him so much trouble in Bombay. And then also on the other side, when he was staying in Tittenhurst, Yoko Ono came to him and said, Swamiji, is there any way you can guarantee that John and I will be together after this life? And Prabhupada said, that is not our business.
Yeah, bigger putty.
So, what's the difference between being callous and being detached? I'll tell you where I'm coming from. Just like in the early days, devotees thought that, well, we're devotees, so when we go out on Sankirtan, we can do anything, more or less, just to get a donation from somebody. We could lie, we could do a change up, et cetera, because we're doing this for Krishna. It's kind of like part of the philosophy. You engage the person in any way you can. So along those lines, sometimes it seems to me that in the name of being detached, devotees or anybody, could be callous. It's not be sympathetic. We're not sympathetic to the people who are begging on the street. We might not be sympathetic to family members who aren't devotees. It seems like I don't know. Where do you draw the line between?
Great question, and one that I have to think about all the time, because it's very difficult for me not to be judgmental and self-righteous when I'm watching the activities of my mother, and I'm like, oh my God, how could you, and inside, it has forced me to take compassion to another level, of trying to notice what she has been doing to help even my whole life as a devotee, as much as she didn't really, she wishes I hadn't become a devotee and become a Krishna person, how much they have indirectly supported. So the way I balance it, the two things, Prabhupada has in places said we have to be callous of the suffering of others, because otherwise you become emotionally, sentimentally affected and drawn in. But it's not helpful to bhakti to be hard-hearted. It's not helpful. So I read in Hari Sari's diary a wonderful incident or pastime of Prabhupada where he and Hari Sari were walking down the street in Calcutta. And if you've ever been to India, there's hundreds of people begging for stuff. And so Prabhupada leaned over to Hari Sari and said, give me a few paisa, give me some money. He had just before that told him that we don't do philanthropic work as devotees. We don't open hospitals. We don't feed the homeless. We don't do that because if you do that, you have to take birth in your next life for them to repay you back. So the best thing you can give people is Krishna consciousness. But anyway, Prabhupada had been telling him that, and then he leans over to Hari Sari, almost in the same breath, and says, can you give me some rupees? And he gives it to these beggars. And Hari Sari says to Prabhupada, I thought you just said we don't do that. How is it that you just did that? And Prabhupada said that if we householders, and he was a sannyasi, but perhaps too used to it as a householder, but he said, if we don't give charity to the less fortunate, our heart will become hard. And then then we can't practice bhakti. So it's a real fine line. And you've got to discern that every context. Sometimes there's nothing you can do for someone, and you have to just let it go. There's just nothing you can do. Obviously, prasadam would have been a thing to give. A book would have been a kind word. There's also a Bhagavad Gita injunction that we should not disturb the minds of the ignorant, but try and cultivate and support. So as a chaplain, I try to, they may not be interested in Krishna, but if they have a flicker of faith in a higher being, or they want to do service. My sister's real into recycling and, giving donations and that kind of thing. But she's such an atheist in so many other ways. But don't focus on that. What is she doing? If there's anything positive, maybe. If you disturb the minds too much, then you can send them going the other way, and they can make offenses. So that's also not a good idea. So, did that help at all? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Haribol Mataji, thank you for the Haribol Mataji, thank you for the wonderful presentation. Just had a doubt in my mind how do you apply the context of the verse where it says that when you are free from all obligations, go to some unknown remote place to leave the body. In today's world, how do you apply that context? Do you take it literally, or how do you apply it?
Well, the Hare Krishna temples are all pilgrimage places. I don't know if those of you who have left home, if your family knows where you are. I know when I joined, my family didn't know where I was half the time, and when they would call the temple, they didn't know me as Robin. They knew me as Rambhoru, and nobody even knew. We were so spaced out, but anyway, that's how it was. So for many years, they didn't know, but being here is a great place to be because you're surrounded by devotees. At the same time, Prabhupada explains that one does not need to go away from home if they can, in their heart, in their consciousness, let go of this perception, this perspective that this is my family, this is my, like I'm in the same community with my son and my grandson, and as much as I have affection for them, I also know they're not going to protect me at the hour of death. There's no way that that's going to save me. And I have affection because they're devotees and I see Krishna there and they very much help me. So I don't know about in today's world, there are plenty of people who are elders who have no place to go. They're homeless. They're custody of the SIPSO, and a lot of people don't know. I know downtown in Los Angeles, there's hundreds of people who come into that emergency room and they die and their family does not know where they are. And part of it is their shame of not wanting to be a burden on their family. That's the biggest concern elders have, is not wanting to be a burden. And they're they are prepared to live unsafe lives, like just becoming homeless, rather than become a burden and lose their freedom. So people are doing that already. They may not doing it for the reason that it's described here, but a lot of people, and they are not just people on drugs. They're people who have had successful businesses and somehow they've lost their business as they got sick or something, and they find themselves destitute. And every year at the LA crematory, they cremate 1,600 cases of ashes of people who were unclaimed because their family didn't know they had died. And often they come 4 or 5 months, a year later, 2 years later, and they found out that they died. They didn't know where. So I don't know how we create that. Anything else? I think it's probably time for breakfast. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. I don't know how to do it. I'm set up with your microphone.
I think it's best for the speakers to hold it anyway. Because if you leave it here and then you turn this way and you turn that way, then the volume goes. We try that here. People don't seem to like wearing mics in this community.